had to join again.
Oh, you should have waited until you showed up.
I know, but if we have some outtakes, that's okay too.
Should I move over so you can see the sprinkle of glitter?
It's up to you. It's up to you. You can move over to the side like you're moving, kind of thing, you know? See, it just moved with you. That's so crazy.
So Krista says that it's some kind of setting on the new iPad software.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I guess she said I could turn it off, but I'm like, why? It's pretty cool that
No,
keeps
it
track
does
of me
look
and
good.
stuff.
Like
So
when you move your head up, it'll follow you up, and then when you move your head down, it goes down.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Maybe you may want to move over here a little bit.
I'm gonna get out in just a minute. I'm making sure he gets on the video.
Okay.
You may have to text him, or Dad's gonna have to text him to click the other email.
I thought that's what we told them.
The one that doesn't say testing.
We did. There he is. Boom.
Okay, good. Okay, good luck.
Okay.
He's got to figure out how to get his camera and everything turned on.
It's okay.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. You got me now?
We got you. We got you. So
all right.
If you want to move your camera a smidgen down or your screen, I'm not sure how do you have a lap? There you go. A little bit. Perfect. Perfect. All
Good,
right. That's perfect.
All right.
That's perfect. All right. So I'm going to jump in with an intro and I'll introduce you guys and then I'll throw it to you guys. And you can just introduce yourselves. Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to do my intro with this is Mrradillo's world. And then I'm going to be like, I'm here with my wife's father and grandfather. I was going to say father-in-law, but I wasn't sure what to call Harold, my grandfather-in-law. Does that sound accurate?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll do that. Okay. Here we go. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Mrradillo's world. I am here with a special treat with my father-in-law and my grandfather-in-law. And we are going to talk about a book we all read. It's called Chaos. Is it what's the exact title? Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. So go ahead and introduce both of yourselves. We'll start with my father-in-law.
Okay, well, I'm James Wiley, Andrew's family, otherwise known as Lily's father. I guess that's the best way to say it. Good to be here.
All right. What do you do, James? Like, just give me your short little bio.
I'm having trouble hearing James.
I am too.
You guys have a hard time hearing me?
Now we're good.
No.
Okay, so maybe I need to project a little bit better. So I'm a high school math teacher at Golden West here in Visalia. Also an active member in our church. I'm on a deacon of the board, and yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot more to say than that, probably.
That was perfect. Now my grandfather-in-law, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm Harroll Wiley, of course, James's father. And I do want to say an important thing here as an opening thing is that I lived the 60s. So this was very realistic to me, more than really you guys can relate to, because I remember live when this was going on. I remember very much when Sharon Tate was murdered and in the news and followed. So I was, in fact, might have even been going to college then, but it was all a really live thing that happened that I lived. So it was much more personable to me than what it could be, those who weren't alive at the time.
Yeah, we were actually going to ask that, and we'll get into that a little bit more here in a second. But let's start off with I'll start off with I didn't know much about, I just heard the name Charles Manson, but I never knew any history of this. James, what did you know about this?
Well, I mean, I was born in the 70s, but I did know about Manson. He's been in the news several times, and I kind of paid attention to the whole thing just because it was such a unique, I don't know if unique's the right way, but a unique kind of murder case where the guy who's been put on death row didn't really physically do anything.
Yeah.
But I kept track of when his followers would come up for parole. I probably talked to my dad about it when I was, younger, about how crazy this guy was. And I know I might be wrong, Dad. You might be correct me, but I think when this all happened, I think it kind of stirred some of the church people up because he had the thing carved in his forehead, and I
Yes.
mean, some of the church people were kind of like, "This is the Antichrist,"
Right,
that kind
right.
of stuff.
Well,
So
he
Yeah.
claimed to be the devil and Jesus Christ, right? So like that makes
Yeah. At
sense.
various times. Yeah. He
Uh,
changed rules a lot.
now, Harold, now what did you know before this book about? I know you said you lived it, but what was it like during that time?
When during that, okay, in the 60s, you're talking about after I read the book. In the
Yeah, yeah,
60s.
in the
Yeah.
60s.
In the 60s was probably the biggest hippie movement. They had the big hippie movement on the East Coast where, 40, 50,000 rockers and hippie types were there. And it was just a crazy party they had there. So that kind of caught everybody in attention. When I was going to college at that particular time, there were a lot of turmoil. I wasn't really involved in it in any way. I was kind of just a bystander without a real serious concern because they say they were hippies and just that was a thing that was going on at that particular time. So, but I had never heard of him before the incident in any particular way at all. But I was uh, very much aware of who Sharon Tate was because of her popularity. So I
Now,
knew who she was.
who is
And it,
Sharon Tate? I know they probably talked about her as being a major like Hollywood star at the time, but like
at that time, she
what was
was.
her
Yeah.
cultural impact, I guess?
Well, she was mainly she was a very attractive woman that attracted a lot of younger age moviegoers.
Okay.
She was
Okay.
not considered necessarily a grade A actress, but that particular era of time, people went a lot because of personalities.
Got you.
That really attracted a lot of things. There were a couple of people named there. You're probably going to get to them in a minute. That I'm really sorry to know about is Doris Day's son, who's a big part of that book.
Right.
Excuse me. And then two other people, actually. Dennis, the guy with the Beach Boys, and
Right.
then the gal from the Mamas and Papas. She was one of my very
Mama
favorite
Cass.
singers. Yeah, Mama Cass. So when all this came together with the book, it really refreshed my memory of those people. They were probably two of the most well-known popular singers in the 60s and the early 70s, the
Interesting.
Mamas and the Papas and the Beach Boys. So when those names came out, I was really saddened because it wasn't names that I wanted to see in that particular culture. I'm not really surprised, I guess, at my age that I am, but it really saddened me to see that they were involved, at least in an indirect way, with Manson, and certainly with his entourage of people that he took to parties, which seems strange to me. The way he looked, I mean, why would you invite him to a Halloween party? I don't know.
That was my thing, like, because I started Googling who the guy was like 5'2". Like
Yeah,
I was really having a hard time finding like how he could like people could follow him, right? Like that's why the book, like we're gonna get into it in a second, but that's why I think the book is I'm gonna go conspiracy rabbit hole here. But anyways, before we go there, what other like thoughts around the 60s? Like, were you like in church at that time? How did
me,
the church react to that? Yeah.
yes, I was. I'm going to say in and out of church at that particular time. That
Okay.
was my days when I wasn't necessarily a church goer.
Right.
Um, but so it certainly shook the foundations of conservative Christian people because
Mm,
they thought he could lead into this huge mass devilish atmosphere that should be feared, and they were really worried about him and that people would follow his particular lead. And it was in the news all the time.
oh, really?
Yeah, it was in the news all the time
So what? It
because they
was
were
like a
trying.
major story then. Like,
Absolutely, because at first they didn't know who had murdered them. I
mm,
mean, it took a while before they found out, who had murdered him, and so yeah, that was a big time then. So his role in all of it just seems kind of an odd circumstance
yeah.
because he obviously wasn't a good singer, he wasn't good looking, he wasn't an actor, he didn't have all those things that you would tie to a Hollywood kind of personality. He was none of those, you know.
Right. Right.
Dad, let me ask you. Oh, sorry, Andrew.
Yo, go ahead. I was going to ask
I
you.
was going to ask you, Dad. So you lived through JFK assassination, right? You
Sure.
lived through that.
He was
So
killed
how
on
would
my birthday. He was killed on my
right?
birthday, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I knew that. So how would you say like the I don't know, the buzz around his assassination versus this whole Manson thing, was it like equal, or was the JFK one much
No,
more?
I would say they were both equally sensationalist at the time, but I would say that the Manson thing probably lasted longer among the general populace. Now, the politician type ritzy folks of the East Coast, if I could say it like that, they carried the JFK murder much longer as a headline story, but the country kind of settled after that. But the Manson thing just went on for a long time. You had the trial and all the personalities and all the people involved. You had the investigations, and so that definitely lasted longer in the news at the time, I would say, than even JFK's assassination.
How far apart were they?
Well, JFK was 63. I can't remember
Oh.
when I wasn't sure what Manson's.
It's in the 70s, wasn't it? It
I
was,
think either 69 or 70 when
Yeah.
that's when the books start talking about at least a timeline.
Yeah.
The 60s sound like wild times. Like just hearing some of the
It
stuff
was.
going on, it seemed just vastly different world than what we experience today.
Well, you'll have to remember that rock and roll music, as we call it, really was a phenomenon that came out of the 50s. You know, Elvis Presley was just hitting the big time. Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, all those people. Actually, all those people traveled together in a car, and they were touring across America. And actually, the main headliner of all of that was Johnny Cash, not Elvis Presley. He became the dominant theme 5 or 6 years later. So they traveled across country. So all that kind of blossomed in the 50s, and then it rolled into hard rock and roll, which is probably Elvis was probably the biggest influence of this hips gyration and all that. He kind of brought in that type of rock and roll music, which led into the Beatles, the Mamas and the Papas, and another guy just a couple of years ago. He had that beautiful low voice. That was a country singer that came from pop music. Babe, help me with whoever that was. Had Paul Revere and the Raiders. Who am I talking about? The guy that died. He sang with Dolly Parton sometimes in duets. Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers.
Yes. So he was originally a kind of a pretty hardcore rocker. He had his own band called
Really?
he had his own band, and then he transcended over the next 10 or 12 years into country music and became a really big hit in country music. But you would never think it was the same guy. He had the long, shaggy hair and played the organ a lot. And but then he transcended into country music, which he kind of got lost in the show, and then all of a sudden he's a star in country music. But all that filtered out of the 50s into the 60s. You know, we had the whole Beatlemania was one of the biggest things I ever saw in my lifetime.
Right.
When they hit America, young people just went crazy for the Beatles.
Well, I try to understand the Beatles because I don't understand them. The songs don't appeal to me really. So I'm trying to understand why they are popular. Because it doesn't I don't know. I don't get it, but can you explain to me the Beatles, honestly? I mean, we're going off topic here, but
it was I'm gonna say it was simplistic music with only maybe 2 or 3 chords in a song that were repeated a lot. And it was very danceable music. So this was before disco. Right before disco, there was a lot of dance music that was very fast. And then there was a mellow in between. So Beatles really caught into that curve of music, and they literally couldn't go anywhere without being mobbed kind of like Elvis Presley was
right.
for a lot of years. But there were a lot of British bands that came across the ocean to America back in the 60s. There were a lot of them.
They kind of sparked I'm assuming the Beatles kind of sparked that countercultural,
yes, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
The whole vibe of the
Yeah.
hippies and things of that nature, correct?
And John,
Yeah.
well, I mean, you look at John Lennon, he was very atheistic in what he believed, so it's just, to me, he started, not necessarily him, but that music started the countercultural revolution of we can be free of society's norms and we can, be outside of that. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Was this around the time of Vietnam as well, or was that later?
It was the height of Vietnam.
Okay.
The early 60s through about 70, 72. when we brought the American troops home. But yes, that was exactly about that time.
Understood.
I actually got drafted in 1967, but I flunked the physical, so I didn't. Yeah, I did. I flunked the physical, so I didn't. I was actually got a draft card 4F. It's the worst you can be, and a number is 4F. So I was 4F. So I think there were I think there were a lot of Christian people who were praying for me. I'm not saying God did that,
Hey,
you
it
know,
worked out. It worked out.
but
You know?
but I did have, and I do have a very bad back that was there too. And the doctor held up my X-ray. I'm standing there. If you can picture this, 500 guys almost naked, wear your underwear, your shorts, standing up in line, waiting to go in and see the doctor. One of the
Right.
guys I went to high school with, just before you go in, he'd do like 40 push-ups. So he'd go in there and they'd check his blood pressure, go like, oh man, you got to go back to the line again. Your blood pressure's too high. So he did that like, I don't know how many times. Finally, the doctor said, no, you're okay. Leave, get out of here. So,
Were people wanting like were people accepting of the war at the beginning, or when did
at the
did it,
beginning,
so when did it actually like shift to like no one?
probably about 68, 69.
Okay.
Some of the veterans started coming home. They were badly injured. Agent Orange. We even really severely injured a lot of our own troops by spraying Agent Orange. It was very it scattered very quickly, and they were trying to hit it with the Vietnamese, and even some of our own troops got that, and some of them died from it and have been seriously injured all their life because of it. But to tie this to the cultural thing, toward the end of the 60s, the culture changed and turned against veterans. And if you were a veteran, you wouldn't walk to a restaurant and say, I'm a veteran. They would boo you and ask you to leave. It got really,
Really?
really, really bad. It got, and what's that, babe? Oh, you don't know, but you have another member of this podcast is Nadine. She does not, you can't see her. Anyway, she just brought up a very significant person of that era is Jane Fonda. I don't know if you know who Jane Fonda is.
Workout lady, right?
Yeah. So she actually went to Vietnam and Hanoi and said they were wonderful, great people. And it was not the way people thought it was. They were treating our prisoners wonderfully. And nobody should be upset. So she brought that back to America, which was a total lie.
Right.
Of course, she saw people well fed and treated good, of course. And so then this whole counterculture began against the war, and it became a very, very big deal. And we had to kind of sneak out of there with our tails behind us, so to speak, because we kept losing the war and we couldn't.
Understood.
It was a war. It was a war we couldn't win.
So this is also around like this free love movement, because I think didn't birth
Absolutely.
control get like developed in this time? So like
Yeah.
it was a whole like I know in the book they talked about it a little bit, but that was like the perfect powder keg for what happened, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, even when I was going to college, as crazy as it sounds, I could walk across the campus and there were ladies out there burning the bras at a bonfire. I mean, they were liberated, so the women's lib movement started back in that same era of time.
Let me tie this into the book, Andrew, because listening to him talk, it's very, because you said, why were people attracted to Manson? Well, it's because he embodied this whole idea. So he wasn't necessarily good looking, but I think he was very charismatic.
Right.
And if we get into the book here, I think he had some techniques that the government had developed, and he used those in his so you can think if you're countercultural and you want to be countercultural, and there's this guy who's the ultimate epitome of counterculture, doesn't matter what he looks like, you're attracted to him, right? That's the whole thing.
Okay.
And so, we could get into the book and talk about, well, how did he attract young men? Well, he attracted young men because he had young women who were willing to sexual favors,
Well, how did you guys discover this book? Because I know James, you recommended it to me, but how did you guys discover it?
Yeah, so I actually recommended it to my dad, and the way this is a whole other topic, is the Macron situation, right?
I got you.
So yeah, so we were into the Macron thing, checking it out, just listening to it, And during that time, Candace Owens, which I'm not going to say, so I have to be careful here because I think Candace Owens does some really great things, but I think also she's like really crazy at times. So I'm not really sure how I feel about her, but
Sure.
she mentioned the MK Ultra program, and I happened to look that up, and this book Chaos popped up. And so I like, you know, I like to read and stuff, so I thought, hey, well, I'm gonna check this out. Well, I read probably, I don't know, 3 chapters, and I was like, I can't stop reading this. And
Yeah.
then next time I saw my dad, I was like, Dad, you have to read this book. I cannot believe it. And I think one of the things he told me is he started reading it, and he texted me one night. He said, I can't put this book down. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
it grips you when you start reading it because you're like, surely, like, no, surely no, right? But he seems to be, the author, Tom O'Neill, seems to be really objective as he's investigating all of this evidence. And it seems like he's trying to poke holes in his entire new theories that he's discovering the whole time. So that's one thing I really, really liked about it, is he's very objective. What do you guys think, like, after you've read the book? Do you buy everything in there, or are you still a little bit skeptical?
I think we should throw out, I don't know if any of your audience, as large as they are, it would be readers of the book Chaos. So we may get away some spoilers here.
Good point.
But for me, I mean, I don't mind getting my spoilers. I just have to know. But for me, one of the hardest, so you ask if I believe it. It's, for me, it's hard not to believe it, because how could this guy roam up and down California? He'd been arrested, what, 60, 80 times? He was on parole.
Federal parole.
Federal parole.
Yeah.
He's wandering around up and down California. I mean,
Getting
it's
drugs
hard for
everywhere.
me. Yeah, I mean, he was, so at one point, you know, he's found in a car with an underage girl having, you know, sexual relations, and they don't even arrest him.
Right.
Like, they're like, all right, see you later, go on your way. I mean, so I have a really hard time not buying this, just how crazy it is.
What about you, Harroll?
One of the things that, I guess, 2 things that just pop out at me that really staggered me, and to this day I worry about, is, was there really deep government involvement in who he was and what he was and what he became? You know, that his own parole officer became his own doctor, or whatever he was, who was giving him drugs as a test. And having been in the 60s in that great big area of San Francisco where drugs were free and come and join us, that whole Hyde-Ashbury area, I mean, that thing was just drug city.
Right.
And so he was just living there for the drugs. But how did he eat? How did he afford a place to live? I mean, all those things are a mystery to me, you know? And then the other thing that really got me was I can almost see it in a movie tied to some kind of mafia organization where you're bringing people in to do things that you hate, you know, but you need them to do it. Like the one part there where the guy was from Europe or somewhere, and he said he was a hired assassin for the CIA. And went like, wow, I mean, how does that even happen? You know, but it was crazy back in those days. And I could almost, Richard Nixon, like him or not, Richard Nixon was a very secretive guy who was very sneaky about a lot of things. And I could see President Richard Nixon doing a lot of these things with the government to spy on people, test people, find out what they're all about, you know, and then hoping for feedback to capture information that he wants. I didn't want to say that because I thought he was a good Republican, but he went bad on us.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how did Manson get the money to buy that compound in the desert?
Oh, yeah.
Did he buy that compound?
Yeah, they had a massive compound out in the desert that they lived in.
I wasn't sure if they bought it or they just like moved there.
Oh, I don't know, but it's just, yeah, like literally he never had a real job.
Right. Right.
Ever.
What makes me think that this is very accurate is just looking at the past events of the last 5 years of current history, right? We had a full COVID that we don't even know like how real that was, right? We had elections that were crazy. So like to me, it's like we've constantly been manipulated by the government and by media. It really, it's really easy for me to buy that the government is involved in giving LSD and experimenting with LSD, and then allowing Manson to kind of be an agent of theirs. Because when did mandating reported become a thing? Because like it's talking about underage girls all the time, and I'm like, did they just let their kids just roam and no one said anything? Was this normal?
Well, you got to remember back then, people can be disconnected very easily. Like, nowadays we think about, we walk around with this phone in our pocket, and like I can literally pull up my phone and know where my youngest daughter and where my wife is at all times. But even when I was a kid, and this does not reflect poorly on my parents, I'm not saying that, but even when I was a kid, like in fourth grade in Farmersville, mom and dad both worked, and I remember Doug and I, when we came home from school, we would just get on our bikes and ride around farms, but there's no way they could get in touch with us. They would have no idea where we're at. We just knew at a certain time we needed to be home, for dinner, and we would be home. So
you just trusted more in society then, right? Than today.
So I think that back then, and Dad, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think back then there was probably still a lot of bad stuff going on, but you just didn't hear about it because it wasn't widely known like it is today. Because today is a 24/7 news cycle all the time. Would you say that's fair, Dad?
Yeah. I remember back when I grew up in the church environment that I did, and there were, tens of thousands of people like this. They didn't have TVs, and I would say some of them didn't even have radios, probably.
True.
So there was no really means of communication other than what time you're supposed to be there, and you tell somebody, and then you're there. Other than that, unless there's a catastrophe, you don't really have any communication with people. I remember my grandparents, and I don't know if you know where my mother used to live, but of course James certainly does. Well, it's only 3 houses from where my grandparents lived. So when I was a kid, I just walk over to my grandparents. Their doors were never locked. I mean, it didn't matter if it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 9 o'clock at night. Their door was unlocked. I could just come and go. And even my own parents, during the day, they didn't lock their doors, but at night they would lock their doors. And so we've had people come over, like my dad's uncle would just walk over once in a while. On Saturday, maybe 3 o'clock, and just randomly open the door and walk in and sit down and start talking. It's just normal. But today, people wouldn't think of that. I mean, when you go in your house, first thing you do is lock your door.
Right.
Most of the time. But so it was a different trust time than now.
Yeah, it seems like a different world listening to this book and just hearing your stories. James, for those who haven't read this book, would you give us a synopsis of kind of what this book is about?
So the book is called Chaos, of course, and it really is a look into the rise and fall of, well, not fall, but the rise of Charles Manson in society. And the author does a really good job of looking into like how he becomes this important guy in society through very unknown means. And through his investigation, which I found fascinating, Manson has a lot of ties to the government. He has a lot of ties through the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. He's got a lot of ties.
Yeah, explain that to me. I mean, the police department and the county sheriff have a big raid up there, the biggest raid in recorded history. He got four stolen cars, the AK-15 or whatever you call them there, and all that.
AK-47s.
AK-47, brought them back in 48 hours. Said, "Oh, okay, you're free to go." Well, who told you so? Well, the guys above me told me to let you go. I mean, where does that happen at? Above me where?
Yeah, so I mean, to me, the book was just a great, I don't know, it's an eye-opener to, there are people in this world who somehow are protected by our government, which we don't understand why.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, and I was never a conspiracy theorist before, and I'm not much of one now, but I've come to the conclusion in my life that the government is not looking out for its people. The government is looking to retain its power.
It doesn't matter which party is in power.
No, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I know we favor one party more than the other because of the outward values of it. But the truth of the matter is, and I again, I'm looking around to make sure they're not listening to me, but my conclusion is that the president and even the vice president and even like the leaders of the houses and stuff, they're not really the ones who are the real government. That's my opinion. I feel like there is something that is more in charge than them, because their sole purpose is to keep power. And the CIA is not supposed to operate on US soil.
Right.
But they operated in Manson's life a whole lot.
Right. Right. Well, that's what's interesting about this book is it takes you through twists and turns. And obviously Manson messes up multiple times and just walks away scot-free. Any random person does not have that luck, right? Most of the time, if we commit a crime, we are going to get prosecuted unless you have someone protecting you, right? And that's the thing, is he was on federal parole, and then he just magically got arrested and got let go. And then whoever was prosecuting him in the crime after they commit the crimes, and they create this whole theory of what is it? They could call it a helter-skelter, like a race war. He was trying to ignite a race war. Like that's a good book. That's a good thing to want to sell anti-counterculture, right? It makes a lot of sense when you start looking at it, how the government wants to influence where people are going, right?
Yeah. Now, the other thing, Andrew, there, if I could jump in here,
is
that the author did a great job showing that the prosecuting attorney who wrote the book actually lied on many occasions and made up stories that were not true. And the author faced him out about it. And the guy threatened to sue him. He said, I don't care. I have all the documents that you lied. You did not tell the truth. So there's a guy with a lot of power that we don't know a lot about, that who knows what really went on in that particular case.
Well, it's wild. Go ahead.
I was going to say, isn't he the one that came with Helter Skelter, Dad?
He did.
As the prosecutor? It wasn't Manson.
No, he wrote that on one of the killings. He wrote the phrase Helter Skelter. And I think he said that like the Black Panthers were going to kill him, kind of thing, because he had killed the Black Panther type thing. So I think he was racist actually as well. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, but I mean,
but he created that narrative.
I'm not convinced that Manson did any killing.
Well, right.
Like, I'm not even truthfully convinced that he convinced his followers to do the killing. What
is your theory? What's your theory then?
I don't know. I just don't. I mean, it's going to sound very conspiratorial, but
I feel like this whole book is conspiratorial, though.
To me, it was almost like Manson was preparing his followers to follow orders of whoever else was in charge of Manson. That's kind of what I feel like. I feel like Manson was the great manipulator, but I don't know, like, to me, I don't see his real motivation of why he would send them out to kill Sharon Tate.
And what is let's say the government is the one doing it. What is their motivation? Is it simply just to make hippies undesirable? Is that it?
I think it was the experiment in mind control. What could they get away with?
Now, the writer did, now you guys can correct me because I'm old and I forget about what I read sometimes, but the writer did say, remember that Doris Day's son was the occupant of that house a few months before Sharon Tate moved. And he said he had met with him, and Manson had sang some songs that he had written, and I can't think of the guy's name at the moment, but anyway, he said, well, maybe sometime in the future I'll record that for you or something like that. I'm kind of filling in
was it Terry Welch? Is that what his name was?
There you go. And so he said, since he welched on doing that, then Manson set these people up to kill them as a reminder to him that he'd better fulfill his duty. And if that's the case, that's just cold-blooded murder as bad as you can get.
So you're saying that maybe they went to kill him, but yet Sharon Tate was the one that was there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but you can't forget now, again, this
I
is
don't
a
know.
spoiler, but you can't forget that Roman Polanski is Sharon Tate's husband.
Oh yeah.
And
Right.
he does some shady stuff because he's out of the country and he's supposed to come back, and he says some shady stuff like, oh no, I need to be gone for another week before I can come home, and she's killed that week.
Yeah.
Well, the book alluded to, didn't it allude to that, like, Hollywood was deeper involved with Manson than they wanted to admit. Like, it seems like he was at all of their parties.
That's
He
what I
was
was gonna say.
kind
It's
of
more of a party arrangement. Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
it seems like, go ahead. It seemed like
I
he was
think he
providing the
provide-
girls. Yeah.
He
right.
provided a lot of girls for the party.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what he did. Yeah, he was a pimp.
But again, you know, how do you live? How do you buy food? I mean, how do you do all that if you're not working? I don't remember anybody in this book ever working.
Well, they were stealing
Obviously,
cars, right? So
Yeah.
theoretically, they were probably selling those cars, I imagine, or do you think not?
I don't know.
I don't know who wants to buy a hot car. I mean, I guess there are some people who would, but I mean, you know, I don't.
Well, they found what 4 or 5 of them on that ranch when they raided
Yeah.
it. So they're
Right.
not even
Yeah.
selling them. They're just.
That's
you know,
true. That's true. Anyways,
so
about go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was thinking about what do you guys remember the prosecutor's name? What was his name?
I can't think of his name right now.
Billy.
Escapes me at the moment.
Start with a B. Bilioso or Bilioso or
Yeah, it's an Italian name. Yeah.
yes. Anyways, like, even in that trial, like, the judge was involved too, because they swapped out the defense attorney to a more pro, like, conviction, like, defense attorney. So, like,
Yeah.
it seems like there was a giant conspiracy here going on with a lot of these weird.
Maybe the government bought off the judge. You know, hey, this is what thou will do.
Bugliosi is his
Bugliosi.
name. Bugliosi.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. The whole trial is even very strange. Dad, you probably didn't watch much of it back then because you were still fairly young and everything, but and you didn't have a TV probably. But that whole trial is just. I mean, we would call it a travesty of justice now.
Yeah.
If you go back and you look at the things that were done, some of the confessions that were maybe not even really confessions, but you know, if you're going against the DA and he says, well, I'm going to bury you and your whole family if you don't say this, you know, very interesting. I think the author did a really good job of showing that Bugliosi was really just out for his own fame.
Right.
Yep.
Well, it seems like a lot of people were involved, like DAs, judges. Like, it seems like a lot of people use this as a platform to become more successful.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Because there was also that immigrant. I think he was an Iranian immigrant in the book they talk about. The DA actually said he had to testify that he's seen Charles Manson at the house,
Right.
but he wasn't even sure if it was Charles Manson or he was going to get deported.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah, they were doing some wild stuff. So
Yeah.
what do you think about, like, the whole, like, the LSD side of this, to where, like, then you start getting to the parole officer and then they're at that clinic and then you see that doctor who's experimenting with LSD in rats, and then you kind of see the similarities the author points out to Charles Manson and how they're operating. What did you guys think about that aspect?
Well, back in the 60s when I was growing up as a lad, that's just when it first came out with LSD, and I'm trying to think it's Timothy Leary. I might have the wrong name there, who really was part of that movement to get that started. I think he was he might have been an instructor at UC. James, I can't remember where he was. This is going to be a stretch. He was either a teacher at that university or he used to be a priest or something. That's a long ways apart. But anyway, he had status of a believability. So when they first made LSD and it began, he was the kind of the funnel that they went through until they began to branch out with a lot of people involved. So he was the key to through the LSD in its beginnings back in those times, and so it became very very prevalent, and his life became very popular because he was the guy who brought us happy times, and so his life became very much a part of that environment. But that's my recollection of happened back there. And I'm not going to say what year because I'm going to say mid 60s somewhere. My name was, I think his name was Timothy O'Leary. I could be wrong, but anyway, he was the big time person in that particular movement. And it seemed like people were selling LSD everywhere. I mean, somebody's going to walk up towards you, knows he might be wanting to sell you LSD. I mean, it became so prevalent everywhere, But at first it was I'm going to say the people with money people who became involved because it wasn't cheap at first. But when it started becoming mass produced, then it lowered down into this hippie group or those mal-discontents, whatever, I guess what you would want to call them.
But isn't like, I mean, wasn't it developed though for testing of mind control before it got out into the public? I mean, I feel again, this is another thing where the government has come up with a way to try to, I don't know, mind control or whatever, use it for experiments, and then it just kind of funnels out into society. I feel like, in my own personal opinion, there's another channel that I watch, and they talk about some of the things that the government has at first tried, and then it gets into the public, and
Right.
then the public. But if you look at this book again and you read it, Charles Manson used LSD very well over his followers. Where did he learn that?
Well, it was that and hypnotism, right?
Right, but I mean, who taught him these things?
No, right.
Probably someone in the government. So this is why it's so strange, and maybe why he was untouchable for so long is because he had to have learned. I mean, he didn't seem like a very smart guy from what I've read about. Or Dad, maybe we could talk more about this, but he doesn't seem like he's overly bright. But if you've been taught techniques by someone who knows how to do it, then you can master those techniques. And I really believe, he had this control over people because he mastered the use of LSD and mind techniques on people.
Yeah, now it's going to take you guys way back, but the Nazis back in the 30s and beginning of the 40s were very much into mind control and things that they were doing with experiments, especially on Jewish people, kind of cutting them partially and doing all kinds with the brain. It was it's been undercover for so many years, although I think it's kind of general public knowledge. But they were really big into something similar to this. Is how to learn to control people by experimentation with either giving them something or operating them on them in some way. And they used a lot of the people they had captured as their mice, so to speak, to do experimental drugs. So I don't know if some of that leaked out.
Well,
that became
there was
part of something else.
There was Project Paperclip, where after the war, they brought Nazi scientists to the government, and that's how we actually developed a lot of our science, is from the Nazi experiments. Kind of crazy. Research that one. That one's kind of nuts as well. So I'm about putting it past that. It seems like Charles Manson may have been some type of agent. But okay, my question with that too is like that he was in federal prison. Does it get into the book of like what he did to get into federal prison? Because I may have missed that.
The first time he was in federal prison?
Yes.
I don't remember truthfully what he was in for.
Was it a robbery or something? I'm trying to remember.
He may be. He was just not a good guy. I mean, he was just, even from his youth, he was not a really good person. I think he did a lot of carjacking.
Well, he was in there 17 years, wasn't he? He was in there for a while. He was in there for quite a while.
I don't know. We'd probably have to look that up. I don't want to talk about.
I think it was like 17 years that he was in prison.
I think it was 17 years. That's the number that comes into my mind. I think it was in there 17 years.
So here's a conspiracy theory for you. Is this when the government picked him up while he was in the federal prison for 17 years?
Well, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Was it prior to him going to prison, or was he even in prison? Right? Because I mean, if he's in
training camp.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he's in a federal parolee, but yet he has the carte blanche to travel the entire state of California, continues to do crimes, gets picked up, arrested, and then seems to walk free. Was he actually even in prison? Like, how much of the story do we even believe at that point?
Well, you guys will, I know you will remember this more than me. What was the rank of the guy in the police department? Like, he was one of the big dogs that finally said, let him go. I mean, it went up so far and then it just got squashed. I don't know if he was the captain over an area or commissioner or something.
Well, one of the guys was the head of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. He was the chief of all the sheriffs.
Yeah.
He was the actual sheriff. I guess everyone else is a sheriff deputy, but
Yeah.
he was the sheriff who said, yeah, he's cut him go, let him go.
Yeah.
But he's also the one who put the kibosh on the reporter, right?
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, I'm not answering those questions. So, you know, and then, and it's kind of interesting too in the book how this reporter had access to these records for a long time until the sheriff found out, and then all of a sudden he doesn't have access.
Yeah,
to
that was kind of wild.
Yeah, they were letting him in the back door or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because he had made a good relationship with the guy who was in charge of the records, right? So he's bringing him like donuts or
well,
whatever.
it was based on the lead investigator. I think his name is Gunther. He made the call to get him into the records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was interesting is they were surveillancing Manson like the whole time, right? But didn't act on any of the surveillance, which is why were they surveillancing him?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is the reason for surveillance if he's not attached to some type of entity, right?
Well, see,
Maybe
that's
he's the rat in the cage.
Well, that's the one thing I told my dad right away when I was reading it. Is I said, I think the government knew his followers were getting ready to kill somebody, and they didn't do anything about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they talked about in the book too how he was originally against speed. So like he was only pro LSD, and he convinced his followers not to take speed. But then once they start getting ready, because speed made you violent, I guess, in the countercultural. And then once they started like committing murders, they all testified that they were on speed. And then the DAs kind of pushed that away, that like, no, they weren't on speed. We can't bring that up.
Yeah, it's scary to me to know that possibly people knew that there was going to be a murder and they did nothing to stop that murder. That to me is frightening. I mean, yes, I'm frightened by a lot of things, and I think the older I get, okay, I'm gonna tell. I know my mom's listening right now, but my grandpa Pearson, the guy was like, he thought the government was watching him through the TV.
Bars on his windows, everything.
Yeah, he was like the ultimate conspiracy theorist of all time. And now I'm thinking
about your dad.
I'm thinking maybe he wasn't wrong. You know, maybe he wasn't wrong to put tin foil on, around his house and stuff like that. You know. It's a scary thought, but again, as we get to we're at an age where information is readily available, and the more information that you have, to me, it's a little more worrisome about.
Babe, how many years ago did your mother remarry your dad?
All the things that are going on. I guess we had a side conversation too.
No, you're right. I think it's crazy, and I can't help but think about like this
25
aspect of all of this. Like, how do you trust an institution that it seems like doesn't have your best interests at heart, right? Obviously, we're supposed to obey laws because we're Christians. We're supposed to follow what the government tells us, unless they're telling to deny Christ, right? But I was talking to you, James, I think when I was back there in California last week, is like, it doesn't seem like there's true justice with our government. It doesn't seem like they are actually for us, like you mentioned. So how do we, in the spiritual aspect, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, it's Chris and I, we've recently in the last few years been praying for God just to bring light to the darkness and display corruptness. We've literally been praying, God would expose the corruptness of our government, and regardless of what the party name is, doesn't matter to us.
Right.
We're tired of the corruption, right? So as Christians, it does become pretty daunting. A lot of times, I mean, I don't know how to say this the right way, but sometimes people get sentences that don't seem to match the crime versus someone else who gets a sentence that's way extreme to what they've done. And I don't understand that. It's very worrisome to me. It's heartbreaking to me because it doesn't. I don't know, because I think a true Christian really is hurt by when there's not true justice.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we're like, how does this evil somehow get away with being evil, right? So I don't know how to deal with that other than just we've been praying, expose,
Yeah.
the corruption.
Is it discouraging for you guys? Like you guys have lived obviously longer than I have. And in my 30 years, I feel like sometimes I go very jaded towards like I don't trust the government at all. And it's hard to like want to advocate for being involved within the government and things of that nature. And obviously we're Christians, we should vote for how we believe our values should be in the country as well. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but sometimes I get very jaded and I'm like, well, like I can't even trust them. Like why do I care? You know what I mean?
Well, I want to add this, that in my dad's generation, for example, no, not at the end of his life, but when I was a kid, all the Christian people, which I was, and our church was affiliated, and I know it was a small sample, is that none of those people voted. Most of them did not vote because they believe that God's will would be what it's going to be. And no matter what, who votes or doesn't vote doesn't matter because God's will be done.
Hmm.
And so by the end of my dad's life, say the last 15 years or so of his life, he changed his attitude that, maybe we need to at least be proactive in what we think is right.
Right.
So he got to where every election he would serve, he'd go down there, spend all day down there where people were voting to help with the voting system. So he did kind of change his mind. But back when I was a kid, none of those people voted because God's will is going to be God's will. And that's what we pray for. So that's what's going to happen. But that's, like you're saying, that's a whole different mindset now. And I agree with James that we should do our very best to elect the very best people that we can.
Right.
But I always say, things that run the world are money, power, sex, and politics. And people who are involved in those, especially if they're together, are very powerful people. And no matter what you do, they're gonna put you away in a way that nobody will ever see you again. And I think that's just part of how the world works right now. Is that everybody pays everybody to do whatever they want to do. Everything is a cash thing. If you want a job, okay, the right people, you can pay enough money, you're going to get a good chance to get that job. And I think in today's world, that's in America, that's where we are. I think, if we look at people in the political parties, most of them that are there because they either bought their way or they're a good friend of somebody who has power or control or money. So they all get to those positions, and that's how they get there. Not that they're the best candidate.
Hmm.
I'm going to go back to James's book about the French president, for example, and I listened to that series that he's talking about, and he was just connected to the right people, to the right bank, to the right people. He became a basic bank person. What was it, James? 8 years later, he's a president of the bank. He couldn't even learn about banking.
That.
It was just
Right.
incredible that he worked to work his way up to be on the board and all those things. And he couldn't have learned all of that, but he was part of the Rothschild group, right? Is that the right group, James? I think it was the Rothschilds. And they were a very powerful. And the Rothschilds are still, that family is still very, very powerful. But if you're connected to the right people with the right money, you can go a long ways in life, whether you deserve it or earn it or not.
Connect
I
it.
think
Go ahead.
I was just gonna jump into your point, Dad, about being what did you say? Sex, money, sex, power, whatever that is. Hollywood is a great example of this because if you look at the actors who have come out to be conservative,
Yeah.
they've almost disappeared from the screen, right?
Can't get a
Because
job.
because they're not capable to overcoming the power that the other side has.
Yeah.
That's wild. No, I was actually with that on that point, power, sex, and money. Like it's interesting because diving back into the book, it seems like power and sex were the two things, obviously with drugs and we think sponsorship from the government, obviously. Charles Manson used those two things to not only attract members, but to also like take control of them. It's like almost a microcosm of what we're talking about from a government standpoint.
Well, yeah, you can imagine him going to a party, right? And get them involved with his maybe his lady friends and drugs, and then they're going to hear from him at some point later and say, "Hey, you know what? I can tell on you know what you did, so I need this, I need that, I need drugs."
Yeah.
That's just how it all rolls over together. It's,
And that's really been something that's been a part of life probably forever,
yeah,
is the use of blackmail because sex is such a powerful thing in men's life. You bring in some girls,
Right.
and
Underage, right?
yeah, and you offer them. I mean, look at this is another reason why Epstein, right?
Right.
This is how he gained power, and because regardless of whether he killed himself or not, which I look over my shoulder when I say that,
Doesn't look like it.
the truth of the matter is, whether or not the government says there's files or not, Epstein had a lot of dirt on a lot of powerful people
Right.
because
sure did.
he had
Yeah.
a lot of power. And again, this is another reason why I say I don't think it's the president or the speakers or anybody else who's in power, because regardless of who the president is, they are unable to let that information go. I mean, even look at President Trump. President Trump came in saying, yes, we're going to release the files, and
Right.
Dan Bongino and all these guys. And I really believe that they wanted to.
Right.
But where are they? Like
Right.
they have no idea where this
They
stuff's
have
at.
changed their tune since last November.
Because I don't think they know where it's at.
You think they don't? I kind of think they know
No,
where
I
it's
don't.
at. I think
I
people are
don't
too
think so.
connected. I think
I
there's
think-
too many people to release it, honestly, that have been involved in that Epstein thing.
I think the people in power are the ones who are not releasing it to them, so they don't have it.
I don't know. I'm kind of the opposite. I think they have it and they're refusing to release it. So they're saying they don't have it.
Maybe. But I mean, it goes back to that whole thing, though, that the government's sole purpose, in my opinion, is to keep power. That's their sole purpose.
Yeah.
That's so,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that makes sense if you look at history, right? That is the entire point of leaders. Like they wanted more and more power and they didn't want to relinquish power, right? And a lot of time that led to their fall. So it makes sense that like power, sex, and money are just these overchanging things that continue throughout history. And it doesn't seem like it's going to change until Christ comes back, right? Is that a fair assessment?
Well, even look at FDR, our president. He was elected 4 times to the presidency, right? And he made all the connections with the right people with the right money. He just kept getting reelected every time,
Right?
Because they were in a depression. So he provided jobs, he provided money. So the general masses and leaders of people owed him homage because he's the one that kept them going. So I mean, what person could think they could be elected 4 times? Well, Trump might think he could, but I mean, who thinks they could be elected, 4 times? But it was
But isn't it ironic, though, that our country was founded on rebelling against that principle, right? I mean, that's literally why we rebel against England, is because we were tired of the government having control, right? Isn't this ironic? Is that this is why our nation was founded, because we were tired of being, taxation without representation and the government having all the control. So then we rebel and we start this new country, and we write these laws that basically say the government cannot interfere in our own state's rights, although I guess that's kind of changed now, but
Right.
we're back to that same place again, to where the government has all control, right? I'm
Yeah.
thinking, so we're in California, right? And so right now this whole Proposition 50 thing is going on, where basically the California citizens several years ago, Dad, I don't remember what year, but we voted that we wanted nonpartisan county districting, and we wanted
Right.
independence. But now the guy in charge, Governor Newsom, is flying a Proposition 50 where
Right.
that can be overturned,
Right.
right? So
I
again,
feel like
this is,
California just needs to split into like 5 states. Honestly.
well, yeah, I mean, the
At least
Central
3,
Valley needs
yeah.
to be its own state.
Yeah.
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 North, central, south.
But do you agree, Dad, with that? That, I mean, it's a total trying to take over. It's San Francisco, LA, San Diego trying to take over the
Yeah.
will of the people in California.
Yeah. In fact, one of those houses in Sacramento, it's like 80% Democrat. I can't remember which one of them is. And the other one is like, I think it's even higher than that, are Democrats. I mean, so they can do whatever they want, how they want it. So they want to redistrict it where it's even worse than that.
Yeah.
So pretty soon you're going to have a small group of farmers that have like 3 people, elected officials in all the state, and the whole assembly is going to be, the rest is all going to be Democratic people because of redistricting. So but you're right, those 4 places, that's what wins elections.
When do you feel like it like went off the rails as far as the USA? Like, because it seems like they were in 1877, they had an ideal, and it seemed like it kept going. We had the Civil War, obviously, that happened, things of that nature, but it seemed like it started getting really conspiratorial, like maybe after the Second World War, from my perspective. But what do you guys think?
Well, I wasn't alive back then, but I can say from my perspective,
From history.
From my perspective, and this is just my perspective, is that I think after World War II, the government's eyes were open to a lot of evil in the world. And in their desire to understand evil, they incorporated a lot of evil. Because you talked about bringing the Nazi scientists over. There's a lot of stuff that went on that the United States was like, hey, we need to understand this evil. But then it became incorporated. I mean, look at how crazy and I don't know the dates or whatever of this, but the government has been found out to have done many experiments on our own people.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. There's it's a crazy movie where one of the really great actors gets he's tearing up this place and getting people all reacting and going. Then they give him they call it lobotomy, or whatever you call it. Okay.
Lobotomy.
And changed him back to where he was a zombie, and all of a sudden, he was just this little meek little lamb, but before he was rousing everybody up, and they were breaking out this mental institution, they're all just they weren't going to have their own independence and all of that. But all it took was a little procedure. And I think that's what the government looks to do, is find a procedure on the common people to get us, all calmed down. But, on the other hand, and I detest this woman, but just like AOC, on the left, she started getting enough pots stirred that even Senator Schumer, who's the miniature god of the Democratic Party, he can't do anything with this woman. I mean, she keeps stirring up trouble and things going on. Now he's holding up the whole government because her and her little group of friends want these particular items, but power, right? Power is the key to the thing.
If you want my opinion, we should just let the government keep shut down for like a year, maybe 2, maybe 3. I don't know.
Well, you can have a socialist. You can have a socialist as a mayor of New York, and boy, that's going to be an interesting cultural thing.
So isn't it an interesting phenomenon, though, that it is the far edges of both parties,
right,
that get the most airtime?
Yeah.
right? You get the crazies on the left. There's crazies on the right. I mean, I
Yeah.
agree. There's crazies on
Right.
both sides. And we dedicate our time just to those crazy people where probably 85 to 90% of the people are somewhere in between.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, sensation sells, right? Like, and I feel like we got to think about that and remember that all of our media is run by ads, right? The more eyeballs they have, the more money they get to their bottom line, right? So it's a business. So of course you're going to highlight the craziest people, right? And project them like those are the majority opinions. When in reality, why? Because people are going to watch. People are entertained by a bad car crash, right? People watch.
Well,
Well,
I just had this thought. Hold on, Dad. I had this thought. I gotta get it out while
Go ahead.
The name of the book is Chaos, and that's really what our government thrives on when the people are in chaos.
Right. You're right.
So I'm just saying, I mean, the government engineers a lot of chaos because if you're in chaos, you can't organize to make changes.
That's a fair point. It's a fair point. Do you
Well,
so
and
go ahead.
If you look back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, the Teamsters Union, for example, in the eastern part of the country, was a very powerful group of people. They produced all these cars and they unionized, and they were a very powerful block of voters. So they could get whatever they wanted because if the Democrat wanted to get elected president, or somebody in that region wanted to get elected as a powerful Democrat, they had to appease the Teamsters Union, right? And in saying that, and I'm going to tiptoe this easily because of James's job, is that the lady who runs the the representation of teachers. I mean, to me, she's a wacko, that lady, but she's a very powerful lady. You got to listen to her because there's a lot of teachers who vote. So it's all about the power in the right place. So, but I agree with his premise about the government. But it's people powerful in the government who are pulling the strings.
Well, it seems wild how much of a spiritual element there is to all of this. And it seems wild also that the government has like researched the occult and done experiments with the occult. Like that it seems like there may be some spiritual influences going on within our country that are kind of pushing a lot of this misrepresentation of the people. Like, do you feel that kind of like from your guys' perspectives?
For sure. I think yes, I think it's a very very much a spiritual battle right now. I think this is one of the reasons why um, it's so difficult to understand the way why government does some of the things it does, because for those people who are spiritually aware, it doesn't make any sense why you would do something like that, right? I mean, it's like that's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. So
I'm sorry.
You can
I was trying to get your. I was sorry. I was trying to get you. I should have muted my deal. Anyway, I was trying to get your mother's attention. There's a writer that I really enjoy his books. He's a Jewish Christian in New York. Trying to think of his name. I was trying to get her attention. She remembers his name. I can't remember his name, but I really follow him a lot and his books. And
Khan.
Yeah, Khan. Yeah, Khan. And he has a book, Josiah, that I read I don't know a few months ago, and he says there's three basic things, even going back to the Masoretic tablets they found way back before some of the Jewish hard copy records are found. There are three main demon gods, and they go over and over and over and over again. The God who denies that there's a God, the God who throws children in the flames and now he kills babies with abortion, and the goddess who is the goddess of sexual immorality. Those three, and he lists all those through all the cultures or names, and they're just this demon possession that is fighting against God all the time.
Is it Jonathan Cahn? Is
Jonathan Cahn?
Return of the Gods.
Right?
Return
of the Gods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You recommended that book. I have 3 hours left of it, so I haven't finished it. But it's hard not to see that influence and when talking about this chaos book, right? Like we have Charles Manson, we think a government agent, experimenting with LSD, and then we have this MK Ultra, which seems very like spiritual, right? Like I feel like with LSD, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my theory here. I feel like they're opening some spiritual doors with this drug. I don't think our mind are made to be in that spiritual realm, but I think this drug unlocks something spiritual. I'm not quite sure.
My opinion, this is why I am such a big, you know me, Andrew, you're around me, but I am so much against any kind of mind altering drug at all, including alcohol.
Right.
I think that's why, you know, in the New Testament, it's like, be sober,
Right.
you know, because when you're not, you allow influences into your life that can have a big effect on your life.
I agree.
When you lose the ability to make choices, bad stuff can happen. I mean, and whether or not it's spiritual or not, um, it just, you open yourself up to not being able to uh, say no. You know
Right.
what I mean? To those things.
Yeah, it's kind of like that scripture to avoid the very appearance of evil. You know,
Mm,
if you're a little worried about it, you should probably be a lot of worried about it. You
right.
know,
Right.
it's like Dr. Heiser says. He says if there's something weird and odd in the Bible and you want to skip over, he said don't do that because that's why it's there because it's weird and odd, and you need to think about it and talk about it.
Well, right.
I
Isn't
would,
that verse that we wrestle not against flesh and blood,
yeah,
but the
Right.
principalities and powers of darkness? Like there is a spiritual realm that is very real. And
Mhm.
and that's the thing is like if it's not good, there's probably some spiritual elements to it, right? Because we're made in the image of God to be like God, right? So
now
of
the one,
course, good.
yeah, one thing I wrestle with is, for example, and I think about it, you know, probably more than I should, is that Jesus cast a lot of demons out, right? So 2,000 years ago, there were a lot of demons in people, right? So those demons, when people die, have to go somewhere else. They have to embody something, right? Now they asked, well, cast us into the swine because they weren't sure that demon didn't know what Jesus was going to do to it. So he did, and of course they killed themselves because demon was crazy. But I think there are a lot of demons like that in the world that are embodied in people. I really think there are.
That's an interesting thing to talk about is demons.
Yeah.
Pastor John would be amazing at talking because he and I have talked about this, but um, and I don't want to speak for him, so I got to be careful how I say this, but if you look at Jesus's life, he never sought out demons to cast out of people. I mean, it never really makes that implication that he went
No.
around looking for demons to cast out. Now, when he encountered them, he dealt with them, you know, and I'm kind of at this. So I think Pastor John and I kind of both agree that it's not good to go demon hunting. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's better if it comes to you, then you deal with it, but it's not like you should go seek it out. You know what I mean?
Well, isn't there
Because
that encounter in the New Testament where
the
people are
seven sons
trying,
of Stephen.
yeah, they're trying to
Yeah,
cast out demons, and he's like, Paul, I know, Jesus, I know, but who are
right,
you? You know what I mean?
That's right.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this whole thing with demon, I mean, we're all over the place tonight. But you know, if
Yeah.
you go back to Michael Heiser's book, The Unseen Realm,
Yeah.
the whole concept of demons comes from the Nephilim,
Right.
Yeah.
who are half God, half man. And when they died, their immortal part of them is still going around. And so Michael Heiser says he believes why they're so detrimental is because they knew what human form was, but they've been robbed of it. So they can never be satisfied with eating and drinking. They can't be satisfied with sexual uh, unions. And so they're just angry because they're disembodied. And so they're just out to cause chaos.
Yeah.
The
It's really,
Nephilim's a
it's a,
wild, yeah, Nephilim's a
it's,
wild topic.
yeah, that's a whole nother book we could get into because I love that book and that's
I know
amazing. But
we should read that again and do the next podcast. Make this a book club.
you're gonna need like 7 parts for that book
Yeah,
because
it's dense. Yeah,
it's dense. It's
yeah.
super dense. But there's no doubting that there is a spiritual aspect to our government. There's no doubting that there are spiritual forces fighting against holy people in the government. I
Right.
mean, you look at anyone, and I've said this many times. I don't understand why anyone would want to become a politician. I would not want my life scrutinized to find every single thing out that I've done in my life, and I've been fortunate that I've missed a lot of bad things in my life, but yet I still wouldn't want someone digging through my whole life trying to expose it to everyone in the whole world, trying to,
Yeah,
discredit me.
right.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on this book, back to the book Chaos, I cannot, we talked about it already, but I can't get a handle with law enforcement's relationship with Manson. You would think now there was one person, refresh me, I'm wrong. It's been a while since I read it. There was one person who kind of semi-rebelled against letting him go, or wanted to know why, why is this happening? And was kind of upping the chain, why is he going to be released? He's got all, I'm just trying to think of what it said, generally speaking. And he kind of went up the food chain until he kind of got his hand slapped and said, no more.
Wasn't he
He's
a
released.
whistleblower? Wasn't there a whistleblower as well that got his whole career
There might have
wrecked?
very well have been, yeah.
Because
And but he said, done. Don't talk about Manson anymore. He's gone. He's released. And don't brush, So there's something powerful there that's, I don't know. It's and I'm very unhappy with the ending. Of course, what else could it be?
what?
So
Go ahead, James.
my question is, what was the turning point where the government finally said, okay, we're done with him. Let's put him in prison for the rest of his life? What triggered that?
Well, it was the murders, right? Like it was once the murders, they had accomplished their goal, from my theory, right? They had made him control people to where the fact that they killed people, and that's the ultimate test of like a mind control. Can you take another person's life, right? Like, and if you look at them, they were bought in fully. So wouldn't it been that?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just I just think it's interesting that they're like, all right, we gotta put him in prison. He's done. I would have been more impressed. Well, I guess I can't say that, but I would have been probably more inclined to believe that they would have just killed him. But I mean, he's crazy enough that no one would believe his story, right? So maybe that's why they didn't kill him. Like, this guy's a whack job. No one's gonna believe him what he's saying. So
I think he needed Epstein's rope.
Is Charles Manson still alive? No, he's dead, right?
Yeah, he's dead.
Is he dead? He not too long ago, right? A couple years ago, maybe.
Yeah, a couple years ago. Yeah.
He wasn't too far from me here in California.
Bakersfield, right?
Yeah.
Cork. I thought he was in Corcoran. Was he in Corcoran for a while?
Yeah, he was in Corcoran a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I should have went over there and asked him his true opinion or something. I don't know.
What did you think of like the interview at the end of the book, like with him and Charles Manson? What a wild dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's such an enigma to me that sometimes I think he's like super guilty, and then sometimes I think he's just a pawn in all of it. You know what I mean? And that interview just kind of left me like, I'm not sure which one he is.
Right.
Maybe he was just a LSD experiment out of control.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, you can't deny, like, no one can deny that he was in that clinic that what is his name?
Oh yeah. Up in San Francisco.
The Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, right?
Yeah,
Dr. David Smith.
That's a hub of it.
Right. And then Jolly West, the guy that's like big in the MK Ultra, right, was like had an office there.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, isn't that's just too coincidental to not be like something's going on here.
Yeah. Was it Ahmed's razor that the most let's see, what does it say? It says something like the most obvious answer is probably what it is.
Right.
Right? I mean,
Right.
he's involved. He's involved somehow in the government, or the government's involved in his life. They accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, and then they acted like, oh yeah, we don't know nothing about this guy.
Right. We need the death penalty.
Yeah.
Like, not wild.
The CIA is very active, I think, in the United States. So,
I think that's an accurate statement.
but I don't know. I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm like my dad. I don't like the ending because it's like, what? I need some closure. You know, there's no closure there whatsoever.
Well, it seemed like
Make
people
up a
kept
lie.
dying, right? Like his interviewees kept dying, so he couldn't go back after. It's 20 years. He spent 20 years
Yeah, 20
researching
years
this
ago.
book. That's nuts.
Right.
He had a lot of good donors. Now, can you believe that? People willing to give him money to live while he kept researching this book. I got some good stuff. Okay, I'll pay you for 5 more years. Well, then this guy's giving up. Well, hey, I got this good book. Well, okay, I'll give you 3 more years. I'll pay you. Get this book done.
The original magazine that started it went out of business while he was still researching.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, we need to get together sometime in the future. We need to talk about the Nephilim.
Okay, you want to do full
yeah.
Unseen Realm or Genesis 6? Is that what you want to do?
I don't care. I am not a Bible school guy, but man, just reading that it really did kind of change my life when I read it.
Probably a month or two ago, I refreshed my memory with a podcast that Heiser was doing about that, to chapter 6, the first 6 verses, and tying it to all the other scriptures. And I was amazed at what I'd forgotten that he refreshed my memory on. It was crazy how all the verses he ties together. He ties it together to Deuteronomy chapter 32.
Right,
he's gonna walk away. God's gonna walk away from humanity because he's just sick of them. Then he sees Abram and says, "Okay, I'm gonna give it another try." And I think almost 98% of people who read the Bible, they don't remember that stuff.
It's vast. You almost
God
like
God was just sick of humanity. He was like, I've had it with him. I'm done.
Well, multiple times, like Noah, he almost was done with them with Noah. Then he found Noah, Abraham, and then with Moses again. With Moses, he was ready to just start over with Moses. Like he was like, I'm done with these children of Israel. They're ridiculous.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out here, Dad. My lifetime of being in church, your lifetime of being in church, how many times have we ever heard Genesis chapter 6 preached on?
Never that I'm
never until Pastor John preached on it. Never.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where people were so afraid of it because they didn't understand it. Number one.
Well,
number two,
they have the Sethite view, right? Like,
well, I was going to say number two, they try to explain it through humanity. Right. It just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Humanity, So I can say that I never heard it in my lifetime. I don't think until.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that Heiser refreshed my mind on recently that I was listening to him was when he talked about who are the children of God. Boy, that can be, he has a whole different group of people that we don't even really know anything about, that are children of God, gods that he created, and so people, I think, well, most people I've been involved in my life, they have no clue, about all other creations that God has. He's got angels, he's also got these other people, these other beings that he's related to, and decided, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to start another group over here. I'm going to create this thing called Earth, and we're going to make some beings out there, and we're going to start with this group of people because I want to go down and visit with them, and I don't know, that'd be a crazy topic, talking about God in the creative process,
Man, that's so excited because one of my favorite verses in the Old Testament is when the elders of Israel go up and have a meal with God on a mountain. No one ever talks about that.
Yeah.
They literally saw God, Jesus probably, had a meal with him, came down and then told Moses, hey, from now on, you got to talk to God. We don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
I mean, and I've never heard that preached ever either. You know what I mean?
Well, then Heiser also brings up that scripture there where it appears that when was it Jacob or Abraham? I'm trying to get my story straight. Where it appears in Heiser's research that both God in a human form and Jesus in a human form were both there briefly. And I got to go back and research that. But
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's where, oh man, because I was just thinking about that, or I was listening to something the other day where it's like Jesus is there, but then there's another voice.
Yes, exactly.
Inside him.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
we can talk all night about this. We'll be going forever on this.
Well, I think what does a disservice, I think, is the post-enlightenment thought. Like it really, like the naturalization of the world, how we kind of went anti-spiritual, and we went so over that we glossed over all of these texts. And it really wasn't until like that book of Unseen Realm that I've seen that's become really popular, that now we're starting to be like, okay, maybe we swung way too much in this naturalistic view of the entire scriptures. You know what I mean?
Now, what about the thought that we're really maybe, I'm not saying this is true, but maybe we're just a little bitty part of what God's being is all about. I mean, he's everything to us, but he could be doing a lot of things with a lot of other beings that we don't know about. We don't even
know about UFOs now. You get into UFOs. You don't want to get into UFOs or not.
Well, I mean,
get into UFOs.
You think about it though, like we probably are not the main characters of God's story, right? Obviously,
that's the focus of what I was just saying.
However, it is like it's crazy that Christ still died for us. Even if we aren't the main characters, like he stepped into our creation, our reality, in the incarnation, right? Died on a cross for our sins, so we could still have a relationship with him. Like even if we're not the main character, God is just so merciful. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, well, what about? I'm not even going to say what I'm going to say.
Listen, you can't start. Just we gotta go pretty soon. So
yes. Sorry, I apologize. Oh, okay. So final thoughts on this book. Like, is it a good read? Like, what do you think about it finally? And then just go. Let's start with James, Harroll, and then I'll finish.
So my opinion is, so I gotta be careful how I say this, but it is a good book to read to understand how the government is involved in certain things, but it's not for the lighthearted. I mean, it's very uncensored, and the author takes no. I mean, he leaves things uncensored, so it can be pretty rough.
Right.
I would not recommend it to younger readers. I don't know if you have any younger followers or not, but I would not recommend it to younger readers.
That's a good point.
I think if you're interested in Manson's life and understanding the role of drug and mind control, I think it's a great read.
My thoughts are, in fact, I have my book loaned out now. In fact, James, I just loaned it to Aunt Debbie Veal. And then I was talking to Uncle James about it, and I got him interested. He's not typically a reader. So when I get this back in a week or two, it's going to be curious to see what their valuation of the book is. Is it sensationalism? Could it really be real? You know, and so, but I would have to say, I would not recommend this book to very many people, you know, because I think they would think it's some fantasy fiction story, even though he's got 20 pages of references to, you know, to prove his point. But I was certainly, as James said, I was captured right away, you know, just 30 pages in it, because I was really curious as to what the details were, because I lived in that area, but I didn't really know much about nearly the detail that he found out. All these other players, you know, Doris Day's son, and, you know, the rock culture being involved with Manson. I just couldn't in my mind even think that those people would associate with somebody like Manson. And then I realized, hey, they were the drug culture, you know, in the 60s and 70s, you know, I mean, the Rolling Stones and all those people, they were all part of that culture. So I would say I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't want to reread it
Mhm.
because I think it had some things in it that I found frightening and I don't want to revisit.
Yeah, I thought it was a very compelling book, and it made you want to keep going and find out what really happened. Um, I still have questions onto why the government would do this if they did. Um, I tend to believe most of it. It seemed like the author was very objective, and it didn't seem like he even wanted to put out his theories. So for me, it added a lot more validity to the book. Um, that he didn't want to even theorize what was happening. He was just reporting on what he was investigating and his findings, right? Yeah, there was a lot of crazy stuff in this book. Like, yeah, there was a lot of crazy stuff. So I probably wouldn't recommend it, but I probably would recommend it too. I don't know. I just lied there. So I will recommend it to people that I think can read it. Probably not younger viewers because I don't think
Yeah.
it's appropriate for them. Probably.
I want to add one more thing real quick. Is I'm sure both of you know that Dennis Kemp has been taking Hebrew for a couple of years, learning to speak Hebrew. I don't know if you know that, Andrew, or not. You may not know that.
I think James mentioned it.
Yeah. And so I was talking to him, I don't know, it's been a few weeks ago or so. I was talking to him about some scriptures in the Bible and a take on how the original text compares. So he gave me a couple of examples of important verses, and in reading them in Hebrew, how the interpretation is different, quite a bit different than what we interpret into the English language. And I thought that was very important that the students of the language would probably interpret and reading it very differently than what it's translated to us by. And of course, they didn't have chapters, and they didn't have periods for sentences. All ran together. And he was talking about how some things were here and they should be over here in a different location, and how it put a different inference on how the language would sound. So it was an interesting conversation that I had with him, and he stuck with it. I mean, 2.5 years he's been doing that like every week. And he had there for a while. He had a rabbi from Israel. I mean, he had the real deal. So
Good note. Good note. Well, it was a great conversation. Really enjoyed this. Is our next book The Unseen Realm? Are we going to go ahead and do that?
I'm down for it.
All right, I'll have to
know.
reread it. I'll have to re-go through it.
how often do you do this?
I try to do one every couple weeks, every week. So like if we don't have to do it immediately, we can do it another time if you guys want.
Well, I'm not going to be home for a little while before I can reread The Unseen Realm. So I'm going to be home in about a week, 10 days, and it might take me a few days to reread it. But if that's what you want to talk about next time,
let's do it. Let's all finish the book again, and then we will re-talk about it.
We can do it like 3 times now.
What's a fourth? What's a fourth?
Well, that's about a four different nighter. The Unseen.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get some specific topics to talk about, so we're not just rambling, because we can ramble all night long.
True, but it's a podcast. Who cares? Like, whatever. My 5 viewers are going to be really interested in this. You know what I mean? Like,
I was going to ask you, do you have people who view this?
So I have 239 subscribers.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it depends on the video, depending on who likes what. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's cool.
That's good. Enjoyed it. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming on.
Too.
Love you guys.
Okay, enjoyed it. Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.